Thank you all for being here today. And if I could say each of your names before I even began, that's what I would do. It's an honor. Thank you for the introduction, Quasi, and all of those who have invited me to be here today with you with this particular energy. And I say particular energy is because, yes, technology has made it possible, but I thinking that in the way that it's not old, but the new ways that we won't need technology so much that we abuse it as we do, as we abuse the earth alongside our progress as humans, I would say. And I think one thing I want to know is, how are people being with their technology? Do they know their own languages behind what technology means? And is it conducive with the earth? Are we still draining the earth's quote unquote resources? Excuse me. And if we are draining the earth's resources, isn't that like draining our own bodies? And so the language of relationship is much different than the language of connection. And in connection, we are using those words quite often. And it's like making a phone call. It's like, connecting for a minute and then that's it. But there is no relationship. There is no involvement with the earth anymore because we are using everything to get away from the earth and even our language, such as, and it had to be, and maybe people don't understand this from a perspective of indigenous thinking that we have when we think from our heart. So when I'm thinking that we are social distancing, but we have been earth distancing for thousands of years, according to that Western democracy, the Greeks in the time of reason, and yet we still, excuse me, have a little allergy, but the time of reason when it started thousands of years ago, 4,000 years ago, brought a time of inequality with the earth. And those who lived with the earth were often moved about to get the better land. So, and then they became slaves to the people who ruled from domination. And I began this whole hour saying that in our original languages and many indigenous languages across the planet today, there are no concepts or words for domination. Now think about that. Where do you come from in your languages? Even this language that I speak in English, one of the major words is I or me or my or mine or ours in the possessive form. And once we are in that possessive form, we often are extracting out of that possessive mind. So that's my property. That's my is about the I, centered. You're on top of everything, and you're dominating, and that's the way the program runs you. You don't run the program runs you. And so when you have the difference of native peoples in cohesion, living with the earth, there is already a system so intricate. It's in our bodies. It's in everything that we do. Our air, the water, the earth, even fire. All that burns within us, all that moves within us. It's a balance, a great balance, but we have often gone to the domination, the dome part of us, the head, and we think that's where the reason, the logic, and we used quote unquote trust science to prove this is how humans think. But there is no recourse, and actually there in the United States there's this how do you say it, they're killing culture, uh, and that's what we do to ourselves. We're killing the indigenous in all of us, and because we don't have relationship with the land, so we divide the land up so that we can live efficiently and that we can save the forest for the oxygen for our use as humans, not for in relationship with all life that brings the air to us. And so the languages are far reaching into that relationship about how something functions. In other words, how a tree is related to the fox that runs by, to the fish that swims in the sea, to the eagle that flies in the sky, and to the planets that give us hope, not, excuse me, that give us the balance. And all things affect each other. When I say this, there must be a language of that balance, and that's been ongoing. And many indigenous languages are tens of thousands of years old, whereas we're speaking a language that to us is a baby language in Lakota. We're very baby-like because we're only using our head. You see, we're only using concepts. So if you have a language that has no need for an alphabet, we tend to think, now, how could that be possible? But this is how all humans think. But if we have a language without an alphabet, without concepts, then what do you have? You have a verb. Everything is moving. There's only verbs. There's no nouns. And once you're into the vibration, so to speak, the movement, the motion of all, your language becomes one of describing without subjecting or objectifying that which is moving. And so you're using a verb to describe a motion, and then you're describing the energy of the motion. And so your language is such that it's far-reaching, more than the I or the me or the my or the mine or the ours. And so you see that you are more enjoining. In other words, you're being with that energy and all that is available, as far as we can understand it, with this small entity, which is the human being. And so when I am thinking about how the languages kind of went away and on another path, I always think about a Hopi prophecy, where the 4,000-year-old prophecy, where there are many people who will follow the one line of thinking, the one God, the one universe, the monotheism. And that today is technology. It made religion into a religion, and people are following this into a road of nowhere, and it's designated as a zigzag line going into the sky. But there is one human who follows the true road, and that road is a man near his corn. And these are all stick figures, by the way, and these are old drawings from 4,000 years ago. And his feet are in the ground, planted firmly. But many of the humans go off into technology. And that's a prophecy. It's saying that we are only thinking our heads, and we are only thinking from our heads and our only reason. So we become very anthropomorphic. And so everything is about the human, that we are supreme, we are on top, we are dominant, where these indigenous languages are speaking a language from Earth, and that we know that the Earth does not lie. You see, so this other languages, the way they reason is that you have all the systems of racism and, sexism and all these imbalanced, you have wars, and it's all about peace on the earth rather than peace with the earth. So have a language that's speaking peace on the earth among humans, and these other languages which are indigenous are speaking a language with the earth and finding peace in that which is already at peace with itself. So this is what I mean. There is a difference. And I think to put that forward is that now we are required to understand the earth, because she's first and foremost now speaking the loudest through, even I would say, the virus, you see, even through climate change, as you would call it, the lack of fresh water, the lack of a lot of sources. And the more that changes, the more we will use either technology to try to overcome the problems that we've created with technology, or the more we'll understand that it is really about the earth. And these are the languages that I feel that are missing out there. And so when you have the peace with earth, you are tending not to sit in judgment, and you are outside of that box of reason and logic and time and space. So it actually becomes more than E equals MC squared and beyond. So these are coming from indigenous languages, and they have still the consciousness of these elements. And I've explained it before in other talks I have given. It is, I would say, the gift economy that the earth is this way. Humans did not derive gift economy. Earth did. And you can write a million books from how we are giving to each other, but that's just human. But you see, the earth, the gift economy is given freely, free health, free food, free everything. But what has taken it away is that domination factor, because of the lack of scarcity, or actually the myth of scarcity. So you begin to speak a language of scarcity. You don't have, I got to have, and I need. And it's all about wanting. And where you have indigenous languages still that do not have words for want. You see, they don't have the words for want, because that desire is not there if everything is already provided for. And if you're in cohesion and relationship with, there is no need for the want. And I think one thing to look at is also the fact that, what type of energy are we actually giving to the earth, rather than just taking and making ourselves and noting ourselves amongst each other that, well, that person has a Western education, and so therefore they're held up more than that wise person who's living with the earth and doesn't have a Western education. In fact, 12% of the world has descended from the race in Europe, the races in Europe, the white people, I guess you'd call them here, but yet we are forced to believe in 96% of the psychologies, the education, and that mode of reasoning and logic. And so we are forced to believe that, because that's enforced by I would call it the matrix of domination. And so we are forced to think and speak this other language, to live another way, to learn how to extract resources so that we could possess. And there's no letting go of that. And we spiritually become tense, because we really don't know how to, if you think about it, indigenous peoples in this way, we don't know how to be poor. We don't know how to be rich, because those are extremes. Those are the dichotomous even to the earth. They don't fit with the earth, because earth is neither poor nor rich. Earth doesn't, you would say, sit down and make a computer program. She doesn't write a book. She doesn't go to the places that we automatically are saying, this is how the humans must be. So when I go back to the 12% and the 96% that we as indigenous peoples are supposed to think the other way, otherwise we are going to become extinct to the population of the earth. And so, science has gone awry, and all science means is to cut like scissors. And so we're constantly dividing up, constantly looking for how do I say this? You're constantly looking for an explanation through science, and yet science is one that is cutting up. And I'm not putting down science. I'm saying there's a different way to look at it, and we don't have to use it so much. And we laud and we applaud ourselves when we can fly helicopters on Mars, you see. And yet we can't even pick up the trash here on this land, this beautiful planet. The magic is here, and the song is that I don't want to leave, because I still have a responsibility, not just to clean the planet up, but let her go and allow her to clean us up spiritually, not religiously, technically. We're not here to save the human being. We can't do that as human beings. What arrogance is that for us to think that we can clean our mess up? Is we have to allow it allow it to go where nature can take care of it. Even those nuclear fallouts. We as indigenous peoples in the Western Hemisphere have more than 999 atomic bombs explosions on our land in Western United States, you know. And so when we think about, yes, we do know this other way of life that's only been in the Western Hemisphere for 500 years, only 500 years, and we got to know it well. We speak your languages, we speak all those languages. We dress the way you dress. We still eat the same kinds of food, but, our foods has been taken away from us. So we're not thinking as we could, because all that food is now GMO'd food. It's exported from another country just as much as we export, how do you say it, just as much as you export like religions and religious practices, because you don't have one of your own. So we learn how to, in this case, Americanize yoga. We Americanize just about everything. So it's comfortable to us that we can go into a sort of spiritual smorgasbord. And when the indigenous peoples have a tried and true way for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years before America ever arrived. And I say this speaking from the land in the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is a geographical center of North America. And in that, you can see in the education that I received from the West, it's a total stereotype that this is the way the indigenous peoples are. This is the way the Lakota are. And we know that we have to allow these Americans to grow up, because they still have not have learned how to live with the land, to have peace with the earth. And so when we say peace with earth, well, she gave us an example. We had to withdraw from our human activity when the COVID came along. And you see, there was no jets in the sky. There was no, things, the birds were back and people were noticing. And there was clear skies and things came back in 1 year. This is what I mean. We leave her alone. She can show us how to, she's saving herself. You see, she's saving herself. And we can't do that because we're not as benevolent as we think we are. Every time we invent something new, we forget about the consequences behind the front. And this sounds very simplistic in the Western mind. But when you think about it in the languages that do not lie because they come from the earth, it becomes more than just a verb, a noun base. It becomes into the quantum physics of how you speak to a tree or how the tree is speaking with you. And so we are understanding much more than that dictionary, because we don't have dictionaries. It doesn't mean that we are not quote unquote advanced or civilized. What we're saying is that we actually can disappear into the woods and keep the medicine, which we are doing now. We cannot give away secrets because our language cannot translate it into any of those languages that are of domination. We can't even give away because we can't interpret, yet we can understand the English or French or the German or whatever language is trying to take our language apart to make it subjective and objectifying it and into dogma. And so what I'm saying is that the relational sense of being has always been with the earth, and those intelligence of the trees and the four elements, those are consciousness, those are intelligences that we have understood. All of us, all of you who are listening, know that's true, because where do you go to find solace? If it's not in meditation, then you go to a place that's part of the earth, because that's the true medicine. And I think without the land to do that, we know because of our experience with this country taking the land from Native people, that our spirit suffers, our body suffers, everything because we're not with the land anymore. We are on blocks called reservations, parks, and ghettos. So we are coming out of that with the vestiges that remain intact. And once the land is free, then we are able to perform our ceremonies in a sense. In 1978, when I was a young, very young person, in 1978, we had a thing called the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. And before that, it forbade us from praying and singing and speaking our language, practicing our culture. 1978. Some of you may understand that. But why would they do that to Native people when we did not? All we wanted to do was help those, because we invited everybody here, but we didn't say take the land or that's your property. We didn't have the thought of it, because if Earth gave freely, then we too have learned how to give freely. And that's how I think deep down in all of us, that not just humanity, that earthling in all of us, that indigeneity, that seed within all of us to be that earthling, says that what was given to you, now you would be able to give it back, because that's our process of a reciprocity. And I think the languages now are on its way back. I think consciousnesses that have always, for me, when I was a young child, it was Wounded Knee in 1973, when we were surrounded by the U.S. military, quote unquote, for being who we are. And it goes through the Western Shoshone that I've experienced. It's gone through Standing Rock. All of these, and they're still at the smallest minority within the United States, are the Native people. But yet we are fiercely self-sufficient in our spiritual prowess with the earth. So everybody wants our American pie, the American pie, right? But they forget, quote unquote, who owns the bakery here? Everybody wants the land. They want even reparations. They want that too. But there is no sign, no word, nothing about Native people within that conversation. It's in the past, and therefore, this is an American thing now, but we forget how this country was formed, right? So what we're trying to say is that the earth will help all to understand what earth, quote unquote, democracy is. And so if we understand earth democracy, it's not making decisions through the bank. It's making decisions with the earth, because that's the way it has to be. That's the way it's going to be. We are all reminded of our indigeneity. No matter what we do, our basic instincts is to remind us that we are indigenous to the earth. Yeah, that's too easy. But where are you when you say you're going up? You see, and otherwise it's just a saying. It's a latest trendy motto. So when you're indigenous, you want to show up for the earth, and that's what indigenous peoples do. We're not, those who are marching in the streets, that's fine. But really, they just march in the streets, and yet you're not showing up on the land. So anybody who's showing up on the land with the earth is that chance to learn her feelings, her empathy for showing up for your mother, actually. So when you understand that language, which we all do when we were babies, when we were young and innocent, because to us every moment is innocent, without guilt. Every moment is new. Every moment is innocent. And so at this time, we are at this juncture where we must either, my uncle used to say, and I start my radio program out with, there's a way to live with earth and a way not to live with earth. And as indigenous peoples, we choose the way of earth. So that's where we are now. Someday when we are really truly advanced, quote unquote, we won't need computers, because we can do that naturally. And now you know a little bit about those medicine people who have disappeared into the jungle. And what you're getting is what you can buy in the in other words, the fake shamans. the fake medicine people that you can buy. They are performing for you. But when the reality hits, that when those medicine peoples who are hiding to to stave off the next war, the spiritual warfare that's against the earth, when we see the war against the earth subside, that's when these medicine people will come out of the jungle. Because everything we do here is taking from the earth, and that's what I mean, an extractive mind. Um, so I'd like to just introduce it that way. I don't know how long I've been talking, Quasi, but I think I yes.
You're doing really good on time. Just let you know.
Am I good on time?
Mm.
Okay. And I would really, my my thoughts are that I really want to talk with people. I mean, people who are willing to listen, to learn, because this other way of being involves not, how would I say it, tech, we become technical human doings and not organic human beings, because everything is about technology. Everything has taken us away from that organic human being. So either we're being or we're doing, because the doing is stuck is within the context of progress. It's better than what we had, but everything is better than what we had. But yet it's making the earth a little worse every time we have something better. You see, so there's no balance in that thinking. It's not a reciprocity road. Um, and I think there are deeper thoughts to be said or had. The ones that we can talk about would be how we receive the knowledge from the things like the sun and the tree and the human in this case, and how that is reciprocity. That our words are such that it you do not leave that which gave you intelligence, that which gave you form, uh, to the consciousness which is in your intelligence within your body. So to us, there is really not the mind and body separation, because our bodies are in the soul, and everything is your responsibility and your ability to understand that. That's the key, is that spiritual umbilical cord to that embodiment, and that is only coming to the earth, because we can take our bodies and put it in a space capsule and leave the orbit of the earth, but how long are we going to survive without the earth? Where's the logic? And what are all the people with all the money, what are they doing, thinking about signing up to leave the earth and have a joyride? And that's technology. That's all. That's the best humans can do, is have a joyride in space. That's not intelligence. That's, I don't know what that's opulence maybe. But if we were really and truly intelligent, we would understand what the earth is needing from us, how we would adapt ourselves to the earth, rather than having the earth forcing the earth to adapt to us. You see, and that's been going on for thousands of years, where we're just bullying the earth. So we develop a bully language. We're forcing everything on to everybody else, and that's going to stop, because the natural human process is often regulated by the natural process of the earth. If there's too much deer in one place, if there's too much fish in one place, if there are too much humans in one place and they're dominating, well, the earth will take out that domination, because then
That's
it's not balanced to her. Yes.
Tiokasin, if I could just come in, I'm just gonna offer anyone, if because Tiokasin's gave us a lot of gems, a lot of good information. If you have any questions or comments regarding some of the information I already shared, you're welcome to put it in the chat. and we'll help field that for Tiokasin. Or you can raise your hand, which is one of the Zoom functions. There's been a lot of good stuff here, about peace on Earth versus peace with Earth, Earth naturally being able to heal itself. So if you have any questions or if you want to share any of the insight you're getting, by all means, just put it in the chat and we'll be able to field that for them. Yes, we have a raised hand from Marilia.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing your words. It's beautiful. I'm from Brazil, so I strongly connect to these things you are telling us today, because it makes me really sad what I see happening also here in the Amazon and with our indigenous people. And for me, it's just this question, like, what can we do? How can we, because I understand there's a whole society, a whole form of society. I was reading another day about an indigenous leader here, and he was saying, like, for this society, what the indigenous people do is to do nothing. It's just to, but this is actually to be in harmony with nature. And this money-driven or capitalist, I don't know, society cannot stand that, this harmony.
Yeah.
So how can we start doing something, or like, not doing, of course, but you know what I mean, to awaken, or just we need to go through this downhill to understand our interconnectedness with nature and everything. So I'm really in this point that I feel, how?
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for that, Maria. Maria, I think often we do think of ourselves as humans first. That it's really up to us, but it's not, and that's why when you saw the coronavirus happen, it was up to the Earth. She, said, "Well, this is how you're gonna. I'm gonna show you how to do this." So when we say the humans are going to go down, but the Earth are also the life forms that are also living, struggling to live now, are also going down too. In the United States, there are more domesticated animals than there are wild in the United States. Everybody has their pet under their arm. So you see, there is a discord, there's a imbalance to that. And when I think about these native peoples who do nothing, how is that viewed? It's a viewpoint, oh, they're lazy, right? That's a Western dichotomy. And we are contemplating, we are with the earth, though, in the quantum physics way, not a conceptual way, because you're feeling the earth, and that's the highest form is of empathy, is the highest form of being human, and that's intelligence. So once we are understanding, it's not ancient wisdom. That's like, oh, back there. That's back. It's here, right? And it's just being engaged with no future and no past. As a tree is not thinking about the future or the past, it's regulating itself by being in rhythm with the earth. So ancient traditional wisdom doesn't exist. That's a Western concept. It's being here. We say wana, which is now, or come, excuse me, come. And wana means come, or excuse me, now. And if we are here, hecha, it's how to say, it's here, being now, and that's been with us as indigenous peoples before it became the latest motto. You see, so when I understand that we are looking for out of desperation, maybe it's not trying to do our best anymore. It's doing what's required. It's using less, taking less, but that's not the answer. That's only physical. What are we thinking that we have to get ahead of who? We'll never get ahead of the earth. allow her to think for us. And so when those lazy indigenous peoples are in the jungle retaining ancient traditional wisdom, they have never left the flow, the continuum of quantum physics. And so this is the deeper understanding of the universal language that Einstein talked about. When he came here to the United States in 1930, he went among the Hopi and the Lakota, I hear. And he spent time with the young people and of the native people. And out of that, native people in 1930 didn't have all the books and all the accoutrements of Western society. And materially we were poor, but spiritually we were so wealthy and still are. And so he said, out of that experience with these uneducated young people, native people, he said, of all the world, 12-year-old children of the Hopi were the most prepared to understand the theory of relativity. They were most able to understand E equals MC squared because they were living it. They weren't theorizing it. And that's what I mean. You can attain this balance with the earth without having to read a book or go to a class, a spiritual retreat, on and on and on, because you have to keep going back to do that. Ayahuasca is another one. You have to keep going back to do that. And when you understand you've been there once, why you don't get higher, because you need to be with it, not get over it or higher or raise consciousness. You're with it. And Earth herself has a consciousness. And that's why I say peace with the earth. I think that's more important, more treasurable, if I could say it that way. And it's an earth culture. And then we all miss that. And the earth wants us to get it. That's why she's hanging on. And I think that we will get it, because we're not just concerned about what we're losing, but we have to understand the abundance of what we still were given and have been given. And there's a different types of thinking going on there. So we either start speaking an abundant language, not a charity or a hope language, but if we speak an abundance language, we'll stop speaking the lacking of language. I want, I need, I got to have, I have to possess, I, me, my, mine, and ours. Those are languages that are secondary, if not even used at all. In the older languages, there is no such words. So if you say, to modernize this, the I or the me, you are a verb, not a noun. You are not alone, because you have so much intelligence that's been given to you and you're formed from the earth. So I'm not putting this in form to write a book with. I'm not putting this in the form to make logic to the Western thought process. I'm putting this in form so that the earth, that am I speaking truth for you? Am I speaking your truth, Mama Earth, as you taught me? Not that institution that came from over the shores that say you must think this way. Then we can make you into a product of our system. So I'm wondering if I'm still speaking that energy of the earth. And that's what I want to give, is that energy, not what makes sense and reason here, but what you feel here. And it's not an emotional thing. It's not an emotional thing. It's a responsible thing. You see, it's responsibility. And let's awaken that. So if anything, that's what I would say. But that's a good question. Yeah.
We have thank you. We have a question from Sven Hartog.
Yeah.
Hey, first of all, thank you for sharing, brother. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, what do you think about the phenomenon of growing up, reaching true adulthood? Could you perhaps speak about initiation rituals within indigenous cultures, and how can we apply that to live in true communion with the earth?
You cannot apply that in the Western context. See, that's another extraction process. We're going to go to the indigenous peoples and we're going to bring it back to this society, Western society, which is not a culture. And then we'll be okay. But it's supporting those who still have that culture of the earth. And so when I say when you ask the question growing up, if you think about it this way, the Western mindset that I have too, because I've been educated, is not completing its thought. It's saying things like, I've heard quite a bit, especially in springtime, I planted a garden. I grew the food. But really, in native thought, we can complete this by saying, the food grew me. The food grows me. The garden grows me. I didn't grow the garden. The garden grew me. So the answer for you, Sven, is that we need to grow spiritually from the earth. The earth will show you that ancient tradition that you have in your lineage. And it's not how do you say it, an immediate workshop. It's not a how-to. You go among native people, we're not how-toing anything. We're not to be anything. It's more of a show, not teaching. So you're shown, but not kept from your choices of being shown and how you learn something. That's why, in this sense, not to romanticize native people at all, because I'm speaking about the reality that we have to deal with poverty, which is new to us. We have to deal with the casinos and the richness that is not us at all, because those take us away from centering ourselves with the earth. So if anything, do not make up something and make an altar. See, that's the Western way. Just sit with the earth. Allow her to speak to you rather than you applying concepts to her. And you can do that. And from that point on, you will understand, wow, she's actually performing the ceremony. She's actually performing the initiation that I'm looking for. And that would take, it may happen immediately, which is instant gratification, or it will take time. And you 5, 10, 20 years down the road, then you say, oh yeah, I knew what Tiokasin's talking about now. Because you could feel it without emotionally. You could feel it, right? But you can't think what I'm saying. You can't think you're feeling it. You think it. And that feeling gives you a different outlook or different result of being with the earth. So yeah, because we're looking at technically the technical human doings rather than the organic human beings that we all originally are. Yeah, I thank you for that question, Sven. Makes me think too. Yeah.
We have another question. I'm not sure if they placed their hand down. It was Monica. If you're still there, you can maybe raise your hand so I can find your name. In the meantime, I know Monica made a comment. Oh, there she goes. Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry. I had written it down, so I didn't know if it was supposed to still speak it or if it would be read. That's why I lowered the hand.
Oh, well, I was going to read it. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to take the chance now. So thank you so much. I'm talking to you from Portugal, so in Europe. And I studied languages, so I responded badly when you said you could not translate it. And I tried to mellow it down because I was taking it personally and I understood that. But I still felt like I had to ask something. So I even wrote it down. So I'm just going to say what I wrote down because it was honest. It was what I was feeling. Okay. So, and this is, even if we can't translate it because our language doesn't have, or the other languages don't have what your language communicates, could we still apprehend it through the actions of respectful relationships with the nature? As if this would bring us the expansion of consciousness, can you envision that we find not a spoken language but an action language that allows us to, or releases us to, of our identity? I come from this area of the globe, or these people, and moves us beyond the scarcity of you are not able to understand, to a love flow of this is how you can be role models. Can wisdom within your people do this, bring us along in the way that you can expand us in this language of loving action towards nature?
Oh, thank you. Excellent question, Monica. Tied to Sven's growing up and Maria's answer, what can we do? Because we seem to be going in another place that we don't understand, which is a good thing, because Earth is humbling us. And so you think about, oh, those indigenous folks, they're very often quiet. And so in our diction, when we're speaking, there's a lot of space between. And because it's I would say, a quantum physics language. Let me explain it. The word that I was, I asked several elders of mine who weren't here anymore. They explained what water is, and water is water in English, or other words, it's water. But to use the alphabet for the Lakota language, it's only 3 letters, M-N-I. And M-N-I, mni, mni. It says this. The means, and you can find it in a lot of languages. I'm not saying this is why, but the calms babies. I know. And if you put a baby who's crying, you put them on your chest, you go, It's in India, they go, Om. Yeah. And so the part means that which is related between you and I and all things. Now think about water. That which is related between you and I and all things. Ni is living or life. E is voicing, speaking. So now you put that all together, speaking, the living relationship between you and I and all things. And that's water. And that consciousness of water is everything. It's mitakue oyasi. It's interrelated with all things that we know as humans. So now water conducts energy 4 times faster than you and I, than if we were in the same room and I was speaking to you through air. So whales know the communication. So water conducts sound 4 times faster. Consciousness, to me, conducts the same way. And when you understand the languages of the earth, as I described, Mini, then we can broaden our context of speaking Portuguese or German or English or Lakota. We can expand that. And so you understand the less we speak, because of, I could say mini, but you see how many words it took to explain it in English? So if I say mini wichozani, that will take a whole page of English words to explain. So this is why we don't need to speak so much. We speak less because we have always been in sustaining the continuum and recognizing our place in time and space. And that involves being with the earth. Because I can go among humans and I know my friends speak 9 languages and everybody's like, oh, ooh and ah. Oh, you speak 9 languages now, what's the next one you're going to learn? So it's always this memory. But where's the memory of earth within that language? That's the biggest, I guess, the best, I don't like those words, intelligence is to speak the language of the earth, because that is the treasure we all know as children. The wonder is there, the innocence, without pollution spiritually, without knowledge, education. Education means the etymology of is to draw out or lead away from. In fact, it means to seduce. That's what education means. And then the explanation of it is to draw out or lead away from dot dot dot, which is an ellipsis.
Mhm.
To draw out or lead away from spirit and to replace with knowledge and information, but somebody else controls that knowledge and information. And that it takes 12 years in the Western context of education, from first grade until 12th grade, to learn how to become reflexive to authority. And in relationship, there is no authority. But in connection, you're looking to connect to God, you're looking to connect to the one who controls. So domination doesn't exist. So if you speak a language that I'm saying among peoples who understand, when you're in the presence of someone, there is no I or me. You're with this, you're understanding the same language. So it's a practice, even in the languages that are romanticized, Portuguese is one, is try to speak without using the words I, me, my, mine, and ours. Try to say the language with that, and you'll find a refrain to understand, wow, this life is more than just a logical, advancement. In fact, this language brings us to learn how the word to be what? To become, to be other than what we are now, is that we are dissatisfied with who we are, so we always have to have more. That's a greed.
Yeah.
That's a greed. So I think part of that is learning how to be with the water, with the earth. And that may not, and I have a friend who says that if you're looking to accomplish anything and the accolades for accomplishing something in this lifetime, then you are not worth the people that you come from, because it's about the next generation beyond into the seventh. So you're doing what you do now with the earth for your children, again, grandchildren, and whatnot, but also all other life. That's a big responsibility. And when you separate yourself from that, then you're I want, yes.
Exactly what you said. If we hadn't had someone who translated to humanity beyond your people, that you think of 7 generations after yourself, so you're planting trees in which shade you shall not rest under, this would not have arrived. If I had not heard before from ancient Vedic culture that Akash is beyond the other elements and there's a space, if I had not heard before this easy, the energy that water has that can capture memory and can adapt to the feeling in the room. If had not one believed that I could understand the concept, even if I don't practice it, if this bravery hadn't been there before, I could not sit here today and listen to you and resonate so much other knowledge. And it's memory. It's not experience. It is memory. So I'm still in a position of lack because I haven't experienced that. Portuguese as a language, we can speak without a subject. So in difference to English, we can say, like in French, il pleut, we can say it rains without a subject. So we incorporate that there is something greater than us, but still we have a lot of other conditions, social condition, religion conditions.
Yes.
And I'm very happy with your response. I'll give opportunities to someone else. I just wanted to say thank you once again.
Thank you, Monica. No, it's a good thought to think that you know, how could you speak a domination language with all the magic, with all the relationship that's there? How could you want to dominate that and take that away from anybody or anything? So my uncle, or what I would say, even he would say, if you can't take it with you, so why take it now? If you can't take it with you, why take it now? You see, so you look around and see what you have, maybe too much. And like I look around, I have too much, you know, but I know I can't take any of this with me. And in my garden, see how I speak? My garden is, last year I gave everything away, everything, because that was my promise to the earth, is to always give to others who can eat it, even to the animals who came to eat, you see. And when I think about explanation, does there really need to be an explanation? Is there really a need? Because that's the easy way out, rather than let's experience it. Because yes, water has memory, trees have memory, all life has memory. How does it regenerate? It's just not a human intellectual, but life regenerates all the time. We just allow it to be on its own, and it would take care of us, because that's what, it's not here for us as humans. Life takes care of us. Earth takes care of us. All we need to do is have reciprocity back, and the biggest appreciation for everything. Not just go say it's a beautiful sunset, you know, things like that, because you're moving it away over there. Is that you are that sunset, you know. And if I could translate even more so from what I'm feeling of the Lakota people, I'm saying that there is no, how do you say it? If you're in freedom, if you're in being free, your spirit, then you don't need a word for it. This is why we eliminate the subject, or the 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 objectifying or the subjecting of everything. So we leave it, right? And we don't need the extra baggage of communication, because we're allowing it to resonate from the earth. And you just can't own that. And to each his own, in a sense that we all have our being, rather than with the my. You know, my 4-year-old daughter said at one time that, and another person also, her daughter recently said that the same question. The 4-year-old said, if Mother Earth is our mother, then who is Mother Earth's mother? And appropriately, as a male, I call my mother. And she said in her language, Nasula. And that means seed. Seed is the mother of Mother Earth. And we are all seeds. We all carry that, male and female carry seeds. The book and sell it. How do you have a workshop with that? You see, so the seed has its own consciousness. 34,000 years ago, a seed said, I'm going to wait for 34,000 years and wait till these smart human beings, if they are that, are lucky enough to put me into the ground to see. Like, see, I have a consciousness of life. Maybe that's what we've left, the consciousness of life, and we're thinking gloom and doom all the time, and we put hope with gloom and doom a lot, you see. So, but I want to thank you. Quasi's directing me that I have a minute or two, but I want to say thank you all for being here, and it's a great honor, again, for allowing me to speak.